Welcome to The Pivoting Wolf. Open conversations with interesting people from varying backgrounds across several different countries around the world. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of The Pivoting Wolf. Today, we're going to be speaking with Maurice Patton from Stone Mountain, Georgia. How are you today, Maurice?
Doing well, Rhonda. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you for joining me today to share some life experiences and talk about some interesting things today. I know that you've got a lot to share. So, what I wanted to start off with is to ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Let's see. What is that? Well, I'm 60 years old. I'm recently widowed.
Yeah.
I lost my wife. I believe it's almost coming up on 3 months. And just trying to figure out life. I don't know how far back you want me to go as far as telling myself.
No, I think that's, I just wanted to know, just wanted to let people know, just a little bit about you and kind of what you're going through right now. And I know that, again, we are all just so sad about losing Deneen. And, because she was a good friend of mine since 1988. So that was quite a long time. So I know that it's been a really difficult time, and I appreciate you, being willing to come on here and talk to me and share your experience. So, thank you very much for that. I really am grateful to you for being willing to do that. I know it's not been an easy time for you these past few months. Actually, if I'm being honest, I'm sure the past few years have been very difficult because that was quite a journey, her battle with cancer. So I'm just very glad that you're open to talking to me about that today.
I look at it as a selfish aspect of it. It's kind of therapeutic in a way.
Okay.
So,
So tell me, how do you, what do you mean by that? How is that perspective for you?
well, it kind of, it helps to talk through what emotions you're going through. Uh, and talking with a lot of men who knew, what I was going through, it was kind of odd, at some of their responses as them saying, I don't know if I could handle that, or I don't know if I could mentally handle that. And that had some concerns with me as well. But, it's according to the situation. From what my experience was, is, yeah, you're going through this challenge, but it's not going to always be. You're not going to always be in that situation. But even if you are in there a long term, just keep moving forward is what I've surmised. Everything is,
Mm-hmm.
whatever and find something that motivates you, something that'll get you up every day. Staying in that bed, staying in that house, all by yourself. Get a dog if you don't want to be around people, or a cat or something like that. But you have to have some sort of interaction, whether it be a cat, dog, a lizard, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Man is not meant to be alone.
That's very good advice. And I know that that is not new advice, but
Yeah.
it definitely warrants repeating, because it's very easy to forget that when you're going through a traumatic time. We get wrapped up in our emotions, our feelings, sadness, the whole array of emotions that come when you lose a loved one, especially your spouse, your life partner, your soulmate. And I know that you and Deneen had a very wonderful marriage. When I think about, what I would consider to be an exemplary, example of what marriage could be and what I think it should be. There are a few couples that come to mind, and you and Deneen definitely were one of those couples. So I really am honored that I was able to witness the relationship that you had and the love that you had for each other. So I just am glad that you both had that in your life. I know that losing her was devastating, but I would just say that I think what you had was really super special, So when you lose that, it is easy to forget that this too shall pass. My mother used to say that to me all the time whenever I would get, down or upset about something. She would always remind me that nothing stays that way. There will be a brighter day. On that note, I did want to get you to talk a little bit about your pivot experience. Each person who does an interview like this with me fills out a pre-interview questionnaire, just so I can, get an idea about what's going on with them and the sorts of things that they would like to talk about. And one of the things that you said was that, you said, when I turned 60, I went through somewhat of an epiphany that I need to push forward with my well-being. I therefore decided to push myself out of my comfort zone and challenge myself more. Can you elaborate on that a bit? What does challenging yourself more look like for you? And tell me about, how you're pushing forward for your well-being.
Yeah, in a sense, I mentioned this earlier before. I've been married most of my life. And this is actually the first time, sorry about that, Max is going on. 60 and losing Deneen kind of helped me reflect back as to, I've never been on my own. I really don't know what kind of person I am on my own. And just, just getting out there to see what, how I can navigate the world, by myself on my own. So what I've done was, I'm fortunate enough and blessed enough to have the opportunity to do a little traveling, by myself. I've never done that before. I like to do more of that. And also just trying new things that I have always been curious about, going more into some of my hobbies, such as woodworking. I've even kicked around the idea of maybe starting a small business, but, I want to be able to run the business, but not have the business run me,
Yeah, we could have a whole other conversation about that. Completely. So I think that's really interesting what you said, because I'm not sure, I'm sure a lot of people might feel this way on the inside, but I'm not sure how many people actually say it out loud, that you've been married most of your life and, you haven't been on your own too much. Can you kind of go into that a little bit more? Tell me, when you say you've been married most of your life, how long were you married? Tell me a little bit more about that part of your life, if you don't mind.
Well, let's see. After I, graduated from college, I was still trying to figure it out. I even went to a graduate school with LSU in Shreveport. Also, I joined the Army ROTC, and like I said, I was just trying to figure it all out. I met a young lady who was my first wife. You know, I had promised her that I would marry her after I got back from basic training. So during that time, I kind of like, hey, man, I'm on my own, and I'm navigating it pretty good. And I was gone for maybe about a year with all of the training and stuff like that. And when I got back to my home station, that topic came up, and that upbringing of your word is your bond and all of that kind of stuff. And I just allowed that to kind of move me forward into that marriage. Now, I mean, I don't regret it. I don't regret, having that relationship. I learned a lot from that. I think it made me a better husband for my second wife.
Okay.
So no negativity about the relationship. We just grew apart. And then when our marriage did dissolve, actually it was your friend Deneen who actually pointed that out to me. You've been married most of your adult life there. So
How old were you when you got married to your first wife?
I was 25.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that is quite a while then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you've been married 35 out of the 60 years of your life. So I think it's an interesting thing that you pointed out. Your word is how did you say it?
Your word is your bond.
Your word is your bond. So how did that, if you can think back, going into the marriage and feeling this sense of obligation because you made that promise, what stopped you from, I mean, I know the word is your bond, and I know that was a main driver of, having you move forward with the marriage, but did you ever have an opportunity to talk about that with anybody, about how you were feeling about it? How did that make you feel as you entered into the marriage? Were you kind of wishing you would have had more time?
Yeah, I wish I had more time. And no, I didn't have anybody who I could talk to about. And a lot of that was probably my fault, because I reluctantly, asked for help. I don't know where I got this from, but to me, asking for help is a sign of weakness. I don't think that now, but
Right.
as when I was younger,
Mhm.
that was my belief.
Well, I know that, we've had conversations in the past about, and I talk about this with a lot of people. It's come up in some of the previous interviews, and just in general when I'm having conversations with people about societal norms, and so I'm wondering how much of that played into your perception that, asking for help or expressing yourself in that way would be considered weakness, because I know that can't possibly be news to a lot of people out there who are listening to you talk about this, because, unfortunately, that is often the case, that people do feel that way, and then they are reluctant to ask for help, or even reluctant to just express their feelings, even if they're not asking for help, just to talk about the things that they're feeling,
Right.
And so I just, what do you think about how much of that do you think might be attributed to societal norms, or was this just a matter of a particular unique personality trait of yourself?
It could be both. It depends on which area has more effect.
Mhm.
You really have to know yourself. And also give yourself a little grace. I think a lot of people are very hard on themselves. I was very critical of myself. I still am to some degree.
Mhm.
Where it comes from could come from, society, like you mentioned, societal, could be a societal thing, or it could be some type of upbringing. And it
Mhm.
also could be something, within you.
Mhm.
Um, that's why I think, counseling really does help.
Mhm.
It really does. It may not solve all of your problems, but it could at least help you deal with it as you're going through this journey.
Well, I agree with that. So since you brought up that you've been, married most of your adult life, and then, you spoke about um, having this epiphany that you need to push forward, you know, I know I'm glad to hear that you don't regret, the first marriage, and you learned a lot. I'd like to hear that self-awareness that, you've learned. We all grow from all the experiences that we have, no matter whether they're good, bad, everything in between, things of that nature. But aside from, I know, losing Deneen, obviously that's going to, present a lot of reflection and a lot of thought and a lot of emotions. But can you elaborate more on, what else might be driving this epiphany of feeling like you want to push forward? You know, because I believe that from what I remember, you and Deneen were pretty good about taking trips and being spontaneous and things of that nature. So what is it that you feel is unfinished business, I guess, is that's the way I'm kind of, receiving it that way. And if I'm wrong, please tell me, but
No, I mean,
what's missing that makes you, feel like I really need to, I had an epiphany, because an epiphany to me is like an aha moment, like something dawned on you, like, oh, this came to my thoughts, and I need to really address this right now.
I'm still trying to figure that out, to be honest.
Mhm.
Um, as I reflect back, Deneen actually, still to this day, I still ask her, why in the heck would you, why in the world would you marry me or something like that? And, you know, she would say little short things like, because you're Mo, you know,
Mhm.
since that was my, and I guess, I'm somewhat of a savant. I gotta know exactly what it is. And, she still didn't answer. I think she may have answered, but, just to come to a point here, Rhonda, the thing that I admired about Deneen was her fearlessness.
Mhm. Do
Um,
you feel that that was, how do you feel about her fearlessness in contrast to how you see yourself?
I operate out of fear.
Do you?
Yeah, operate out of fear.
What does that look like when you're operating out of fear? Give me an example.
Well, just like in recent weeks, um, like I don't know if I told you that I hadn't worked in probably about 2 or 3 months, no income coming in.
I know you said you were going to be taking a leave, but we didn't get into the details about any financial aspects about that.
Right. So, it was kind of stressful in that, type of situation. I mean, I got the main objective that I was looking for was just getting FMLA. So I have that job protection if I decided to go back to work.
Mhm.
In this case, I decided to go back. But, the uncertainty of that.
Mhm.
One, one of the things that, I'm indifferent about it, but I
Mhm.
work well, I work better under pressure.
Okay. So, so it sounds like you operate based out of fear. It can be stressful, but it also sounds to me like what you just said, that fear can also be kind of a motivator for you.
That is correct.
Because that's often a close relationship with people who tend, and I'm not saying this is you because I don't know this about you, but there's a really interesting article that someone sent me a few years ago and it cracked me completely up. I'll have to send it to you, but basically it's a little illustration of the procrastination monkey that sits on our back. And then we sit here and we procrastinate. And then the fear monster comes. And then that's when we take action and we do the things that we're supposed to do. We get it. It's a really funny article, but it's very, very well done. And fear can be a motivator. It's and sometimes
But also, Ron, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you
Mhm.
said the other word too, that is part of my characteristic.
What's that? Procrastination?
That is correct.
Really? Okay, so then see, I did not know that about you, but okay, so those two pieces go together quite often. So, thank you for, you just validated what I was just talking about, which is what that whole article was about. And I suffer from that as well, and I think that the the unfortunate benefit of that is if you are inadvertently rewarded for that behavior because you procrastinate, and then the fear monster comes in, and then you go into hyper overdrive. And then often what results in that is that you end up doing your best work. And that's where we get this phrase, I work best under pressure.
Yeah.
Well, because you've got this fear monster on your back now. And so now you're compensating for all the procrastinating. And now you get into flow and you're in the zone. And so now you just overachieve the target. And then you get kudos, you get you get the highest grade in the class, you get the recognition, you get whatever. And then now you're in this cycle where you've rewarded the very behavior that, is not usually seen as very desirable. So
Exactly.
Ask me how I know. I just revealed a little bit about myself here. Yeah, I got into that cycle in college, and it's dreadful. It's dreadful, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. But I tell you what, call it dopamine, but when it does work, oh man, the reward is like,
I know it's but don't we tell ourselves, oh, we're not going to do that anymore? And every single time, I know.
Exactly. We tell ourselves, and I'll admit, and this is probably going to go off topic, I always admire people in school who did not require to study that much. Like Denise was that person in college. She would get out there and party all week.
Yeah, I remember.
And then all weekend, got an exam Monday, and she aces it.
Yeah.
Why you do crap like that? I'm killing myself. procrastinating, I'll take care of it. And then I try to, read, cram it all in. And then it's like, sometimes I'll fail, like I'll get a big goose egg F.
Mhm.
Or sometimes, but no, well, yeah, that's true. But the other part is I would expect to fail, but I would be surprised that I didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like
know.
I would expect a D or an F from it, and surprisingly get a B or a C, and I'm like,
Yeah.
good enough.
Yeah, I've experienced that. I always would, you're hard on yourself. Oh, I'm gonna do terrible. And then you get like an A or A plus or something, you
Right,
know. Yeah, but Deneen is a person who didn't require a lot of sleep back then. Trust
right.
me, she surely ran me ragged a few times.
Right.
Back when we worked together, way back in the day. But let's talk about this driven by fear thing, because as you're trying to push forward for your well-being, as you said, what fears do you have as you go into this next phase? I mean, you've gone through an incredible experience. It's not easy for anyone to lose their spouse. So I know that's a unique aspect of your experience right now. You do happen to be, at an age where, people would, that's midlife, or, you did mention that you've expressed an interest in maybe starting a business, so that's a lot going on. Can you tell me, you know, do you have any fears about moving forward with these endeavors? What are you feeling about this place in your life right now?
Yeah, there's several, concerns. I wouldn't call them fears now. They're more concerns.
Mhm.
Uh, the elephant in the room is I'm at that point of retirement. Not afraid of dying, but I'm afraid of being financially insecure. Um, Usually for some folks, like even people, especially people of color, once they've retired, they have not adjusted their you know desire for material things, uh, and out of the relationship, I think I may have mentioned this to you, between me and Deneen, I'm the spender
Oh,
in
okay.
the relationship. She was the same. So I'm, that's my concern is not being out of control
Mhm.
in terms of that, and not having the resources to just maintain a simple life, keeping a roof over our head, you know, clothes on our back, food in our bellies, Maslow's hierarchy of need.
So,
Other than go ahead.
no, go on.
Other than that, just addressing those needs there is where my main concern is making sure that those areas are covered.
Rightfully so. And I think we're all having those thoughts lately. Even people who are not facing retirement, it's been some
Yeah.
challenging times that we've been experiencing for the past several years, actually, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But talking about, providing a roof over our head and things of that nature, I want to kind of touch on something more specific. Um, those are very valid concerns. And I would like to invite you to, think about ways that you can leverage resources that you may already have, whether it's, talking to a financial advisor, or I know you'll be getting some coaching sessions, and, we can certainly, cover those kinds of things. But I just had another question that came up, because I know what a provider you were, for your family. So tell me how it feels being that provider. Now that you're transitioning into, you're on your own. So you've brought up some really powerful points. You're on your own now after you've been married for most of your adult life. You've got the financial concerns. I know that you were, a very strong provider for your family. We've talked about what a good father you were, how you provided, in your first marriage. How are you feeling about this new role that you have now? Your child is grown, so you're not taking care of him. I know you've got a granddaughter who you love and want to leave a legacy for her. But talk to me a little bit about how it feels for you. And I'm just going to go right to the point. I'm just going to ask you, and only because it came up before.
Right.
Because I don't know. I just don't hear a lot of people talking about it a lot. I'm not saying that it's not getting talked about, so I don't want to get dinged for saying something that's not true. But in my experience, I don't hear a lot of people really directly asking men about how they transitioned from these roles that they have, from being a provider for their household, and the responsibilities, the obligations, and the expectations that are put on males in our society. So you've lost your wife, and now you're facing retirement. You have got a lot loaded in your backpack right now.
Yeah.
From a man's perspective, how does that feel to go from being, you had all this responsibility, you've carried a lot of responsibility most of your life. Now you have the opportunity to pretty much do whatever you want.
And I have no clue as to, that's, and I hate to say it like this, but it's a problem, but it's a good kind of problem, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. I know what you mean.
It's more like a gift in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guilt part comes in. I should not be enjoying this, or I would always wonder, I would always reflect back, Deneen would really love this,
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about, we talked about that. And she has definitely, said, look, she said, one thing I've learned about, remember when she had that car accident. And she said that that was the most peaceful rest that she's ever had. And she said when she came out from that, she let all that noise go and just lived her life,
And what noise, just so we can be clear, what noise are you referring to?
Having to worry about, surviving, basically just trusting yourself that things are going to be okay. I know,
okay.
I know it's not anything that's astounding, but I find myself at a lot of times internalizing a lot of things that I really don't need to even worry about.
Well, it's not that whether it's astounding or not. Actually, it's another one of those things that deserves it cannot be overstated, you
Yeah.
know. That is a lot of noise. There's a lot of worry, there's a lot of fear, and it's unfortunate that that level of energy, that worry, that constant, you know, underlying, you know, stress of surviving, it
Right.
robs us of our joy. It really does. And I'm speaking from experience myself, you know, it's like being that squirrel in the middle of the road,
Yeah.
digging inside, like, where am I going? What am I don't know.
Right.
And just trying to cross the damn road, you know.
And that's all that squirrel is trying to do, man. And he
But at the
because
overthinking and
yeah,
overcompensating
yeah,
and, oh, you know, yeah. And it's just like, you know, you could have just chilled and just crossed the road, you
it just
know.
crossed the road, man.
So
But that is a great analogy about some folks' lives, especially when they're going through a transition. And that's how I felt. I felt like that squirrel all I wanted to do was just cross that road.
yeah.
That's all I wanted to do. And, you know, yeah, like, and where a lot of folks just mess up, Rhonda, is that they get indecisive and they're bouncing back and forth, not knowing that that car is still coming. And all you had to do was just cross the road. Just simply cross the road.
Yeah, you know, but I think it takes practice
Yeah, yeah.
to be, it takes practice to be deliberate about calming down and not being the squirrel that's zigging and, you know, indecisiveness and fear and worry and concern, or as you put it, noise, you know. Um, it's difficult sometimes to just
Mhm.
go out on faith and just say, you know, I just trust that everything's going to be fine. That's really hard
Yeah,
because, you know, we've got so many messages coming at us that tell us otherwise. You have to worry about it. You got to get it right. You got to, if you don't do this, then this is going to happen. If you don't do that, then that's going to happen. And, you know, I know that, you know, we have a nervous system, and we have responses, and we have fear, and stress. These things serve us, um, from an evolutionary perspective. You know, it's like, hey, it's time to run.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
something's chasing you now. It's time to go. So stress, fear, alert system, those things. But, you know, unfortunately, as we have, you know, evolved as a society, and we have, you know, taken on more and more of a stressful lifestyle, these things that were intended to just be, you know, momentary, to help us, you know, catapult forward, have become, for so many of us, an ongoing, perpetual, long-term, sometimes lifetime of low-lying stressors all the
Right,
time, and
right.
constantly being in this like mode of fight or flight. And it's
Mhm.
actually quite damaging. It's it's physically, mentally, emotionally damaging, you know, to be in that constant state of mind. And so when you're so occupied with having that kind of an experience, it doesn't leave a lot of room for a lot of joy, you
Right.
know. So it's not that it's, you know, this is not that this is, you know, whether or not this is a spectacular statement or not, it's the darn truth. And,
Mhm.
you know, I think we could all be reminded of that each and every single day. Sometimes for some people, it is a struggle just to wake up every day and remember that as they
Right.
move forward in their day. You know, there's a lot of anxiety out there in the world, and a lot of these experiences that we're having are driven by this continuous presence constantly worrying about surviving, like you said. So, it's definitely an interesting part of the human experience. And, I hear what you say. You don't know what to do. You're standing over what you said, this is an opportunity. It's a blessing, but it's a stressor too, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is. And those, that monster, what did you call that monster?
The fear monster.
The fear monster comes in and like, if you don't get this right, this is going to happen, or this could happen. And I'm like, we don't know that. We
Yeah.
don't know. Well, another point, like you knew, about a month ago, I took off to Costa Rica. Anita and I talked about going, one of the places we wanted to go. I just wanted to get the heck out of Atlanta so I can just get away from the noise, in other words.
Right.
And, I wanted to see if I could just push myself. I'm 60 years old. I think I'm in, decent shape. I don't know if I can run a marathon, but I will give it a try. But I really did push myself physically, and I'm happy at the result that occurred.
So do you think you'll be doing more of that then?
I would like to. I would like to.
So how did that feel for you? I know you were traveling alone.
Yeah.
You just, like you said, you got out of, you did it very quickly. And you looked, from the pictures that I saw, like you really were having a very nice time. But I wondered how you were feeling while you were there without Deneen. How was that experience for you overall?
Yeah, that was, challenging. But, the human psyche has a way of adjusting. Well, I know with mine. You're going to have a different thought. You're going to have to kind of have a different way of thinking about life. Some people you call it spiritual manifestation, whatever your belief is, but the human mind has a way of protecting itself. And I just basically just felt Deneen's presence with me.
Very nice. Yeah.
Be it wishful thinking. It's whatever the human psyche can accept. And the thing about it is just deal with it. It's something that's between you and that experience. And yeah, I mean, there were some days that, that I was there, I felt sad. I would look at pictures of, Deneen and I together, and that helped. That helped also. It helped me to move forward. I'll never forget Deneen. I'll never stop loving. Some people will say, well, what about for the other person? I think I got enough, love to love more than one person. And that's the third, I don't know if I mentioned that, and that's the other fear is being alone, is the saddest thing I've seen are people, male and female, who have died alone with no one knew.
Yeah. That's that's very that's heavy,
Yeah,
really.
that really is.
So I know that it's, it's been, I think you said nearly 3 months, but so, and obviously not rushing or anything. So do you see yourself then falling in love with someone else
Oh yeah,
in
yeah,
the
I
future?
do. I'm at least hopeful of that. Um, but right now I'm kind of like, you know, like being, by myself.
Hmm.
Me and Matt. I wanted to see what I can do on my own.
Hmm.
Um,
And what do you think that you will gain from this alone time? And that might sound like an obvious question, but I'm going to ask you to dig a little bit deeper. For anybody out there who's like, why did she ask such a silly question? He just said that he wants to see what it's like to be on his own. He's been, I get that. But more specifically, how do you see yourself coming out a year from now on the other side of, where you are now? What would it look like for you to say, I really benefited from having some time to myself to get to know myself? Because you mentioned something about, needing to know yourself, and you aren't sure about certain things because you have been married for so long. You hadn't been on your own that much. What would be your goal, whether it's a growth goal or, whatever the goal is,
mm,
what would that look like for you to be able to say, I've been on my own and I benefited in these ways, this is what I want to get out of this experience of being by myself and exploring myself and pushing myself. What does that look like for you, Maurice?
hmm. I never thought about that. Um, I guess looking back at things, I don't know. I don't know how I would measure that. Just by, I guess, just existing, still alive, still here, still contributing to society.
Mhm.
Helping out a fellow man or fellow woman.
Mhm.
Uh, I think one of the things, Rhonda, is being able to, maybe share information, share my experiences with other individuals,
Okay.
helping them along, through a rough patch, letting them know, hey man, yeah, you're going through the shit now, you and it's gonna be hard, but you're gonna be all right. You are a strong individual. And a lot of people really don't give themselves credit for being strong until they're put in that situation. Does that make sense?
It does. So are you feeling pretty strong right now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that was the thing too. Getting a little self-confident. Growing up as a kid, I really wasn't very confident in myself. I wasn't a good athlete. I wasn't a good student. The only thing that I could do was maybe, you know, uh, communicate well with
Mhm.
people. And I find that, people do draw to you if you show concern and kindness towards each other. And that's one of the things that I do want to try to improve on is being kind to other people, be more engaging,
Okay.
try to be helpful, try to be supportive. Because it's rough out here. It can be, life is good, but man, life can also throw you a curveball, and people are just not aware of things coming,
Mhm.
you know. And I tend to think that I'm a pretty good observer. I can kind of see things coming down maybe 60 miles down the road,
Mhm.
you know, and say, hey, there's that boulder that's coming down that's about 60 miles down the road there. You may want to step out of the way before you get rolled over, you know.
Well, I think that's very admirable that you have that trait, that you just, genuinely want to give of yourself and be of service like that to your community, to the world at large. And,
Mhm.
I can feel that empathy coming from you. Well, I've known that about you anyway, just from knowing you. And so, I would agree that that is probably one of your best traits. And I will share with you, because I'm not sure if I had shared this with you previously, but there are people who met you through me, who I don't think you may remember who they are, but they definitely remembered you. They
Hmm.
remembered you, and they remembered you and Deneen together. Um, so I just want to tell you already that whether you're aware of it or not, that you do make quite an impact on people. So please know that and own that, and
Thank you.
and remember that, because it was when you were at the grand opening for the studio, remember?
Mhm. Right, right.
And yeah, people remembered you guys. And I think that that's, if that's what you're telling me that your goal is, if that's where you want to be on the other side of things, that you want to help other people, you want to give back, and you do have like a very giving nature about yourself. You're already on track with that. That's
Mm.
already a part of who you are. I just want to shift gears just slightly, and just point back to one of the questions in the questionnaire. I asked you to please choose 3 words that describe the experience that you're having right now. And you said stressful, exciting, and hopeful.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
I understand the stressful aspect of it. You've talked a little bit about, the financial concerns, and then, you're being on your own and things of that nature. Not being sure about where you're going, but just knowing that you do want to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And then
Right.
exciting, excitement it can be good, it can be negative, it can be, in between, and then hopeful. So I just want to ask you, stressful, exciting, and hopeful. Can you touch on each of those 3 words for me and tell me a little bit more about what they mean to you?
Well, I think we already talked about that as far as the stressful part,
Right. Yeah.
um, the uncertainty,
Hmm.
and they kind of they're kind of linked in a way, if you really think about it.
Hmm.
The uncertainty, it is exciting, it is stressful, it is
Hmm.
hope. You can be hopeful.
Hmm.
Um, there's just let's see, the stressful part. Uh, what was the second one besides hopeful?
Exciting.
Exciting.
And exciting can take on
Yeah,
different flavors,
yeah.
you know.
But the thing about it goes back to uncertainty, you
Hmm.
know, um, the unexpected, or it could not be unexpected. It could be expected, but still be exciting.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and hopeful. Wow, Rhonda, that I should put that on a T-shirt somewhere.
Maybe
And
you should.
I think one of the common things as a human being is that we all remain hopeful.
Hmm.
I think a person who has given up hope, that's when all hands need to be on deck, I feel.
Well, And that kind of goes back to a point that you made really early on in the conversation when you talked about not getting stuck, getting off the couch, getting out of the house, not being alone. You know, I think it's really important to really, state that over and over again, the importance of not being alone and being willing to push through the discomfort and the uncertainty and move forward. I really love the way that you worded it when you said that you were, you want to push forward for your well-being. I mean, that was really, really key. And pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. So, I mean, you were gone to Costa Rica for what, 3 weeks or something like that?
Right.
So, I mean, that was for some people they never leave their state,
Right.
so,
Right. Right.
and I know that experience, as beautiful as Costa Rica is, and, I know you had a mixture of emotions, but the fact that you just went ahead and did it soon and you didn't hesitate, and I think that was probably a good idea.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a trait of Deneen.
yeah, yeah. Now let me ask you something else. Because I know, we talked about the stress, we talked about the excitement, and, other than the possibility of, starting a new business, enjoying more time with your hobbies, or even potentially falling in love again, what else makes you hopeful?
Mm. I'm hopeful. Whatever, and this might be off topic, but I think we've talked about this. What's going on in the United States, and primarily what's going on in the world globally. I mean, there are things that are going on environmentally. There are things going on politically, societally, if there's such a word.
Mhm.
Social justice, the treatment of people, the different ways of treatment of the individual,
Mhm.
be it by race, gender, sexual orientation.
Mhm.
I think I'm hopeful that things will get better in those areas.
That's
The
that's
reason
definitely a lot. That's something to be hopeful for sure,
right,
because it
that
certainly.
you know I do I am hopeful for what I consider a utopian society,
Mhm.
uh, where people are tolerant of each other. Now
Mhm.
you might have your own opinion. That's cool. I don't even care if you even vocalize it.
Mhm.
That's cool, because I think exposure to things, when it's exposed to the light, I think it avails us to an opportunity to at least have a cordial conversation about
I really agree with that.
it. And
And
I
that's
think
why
we,
even the controversial thoughts,
yeah,
even when people have a controversial, opinion about something that's touchy, I'm never a fan of censoring people,
yeah, yeah,
because I would rather know what's really on your mind, even if I don't like it. Then at least I'll know whether or not I should engage with you on and on what level. You
right,
know, I
right,
never want to live in a world where, and unfortunately, we're kind of heading that direction. It's like you've got the thought police out here.
yeah, yeah,
It's like, come
yeah,
on, it's not that's not. Wouldn't you rather know what's on that person's mind so you can kind of get some insight into what makes them tick than to silence them and run them into a dark corner somewhere where they can do God knows what, you know.
Right, because man, you know what? You
Yeah.
know, paint can really grow during the dark, you know.
Well, yeah, and I think that, you know, if we can be mature enough, and that's the kicker.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have lost their level of maturity. They are no longer interested in having civil discourse. They listen to respond. They're not listening to understand. And yeah, I'm hopeful for that world as well. I try to remain hopeful for that. I have no choice but to try to remain hopeful for that. You know, I love people and I don't like suffering, you know.
Yeah,
I don't. And when I say I don't like suffering, of course I don't like to suffer. But I mean, I don't like when
I don't like
people
human
are
suffering.
suffering. I don't like human suffering, animal suffering, any of that, you know. Yeah, it's really important. I think that's a great thing to be hopeful about, Maurice. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, sure. Thank
Now
you. Thank you for drawing it out of me.
Now I've got one last question for you, because usually there's a little piece of a question that I have at the end of the questionnaire, and I leave it open for people to share what they want, you know, to talk about. But you didn't fill that out, so I'm going to ask you to pick a random card from my. I really like this. I'm not pitching this. This is. I love these big talk cards. Yeah, they're kind of cool. They're just like, it's to avoid chit chat. You know, I don't like small talk, right? So I'm gonna hold up the cards, and I'm gonna point, and you just tell me which card I should pull. This is random. I do not know what these questions are.
Okay.
Yet. So you just tell me when to stop, and I'll just pull a card.
Stop right there.
Here?
Go back one.
This one?
Right.
That one. All right. Let's see what it says. Ta-da. Oh, this is kind of neat. What is one question you would ask a fortune teller?
Hmm. The thing that comes to mind immediately, what will the world look like, let's say 100 years from now?
I think that's that takes guts to ask that question.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I like to look behind the curtain. I like I like to know what's coming down that 60-mile distance.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
You know, so I can prepare for it.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I don't know if I would have the nerve enough to ask that question, because I feel a little bit fearful about that. I'm like, we just talked about being hopeful for this world that we would like to see, you know, and I am hopeful, but at the same time, I'm a little bit scared.
Yeah.
You know, I hate to be so vulnerable, but hey, I'm out here just, this is who I am.
Right.
I am not hiding behind anything anymore, you know, whether it's colleagues or clients or friends, family. This is who I am. And I have fears just like everybody else, you know. I think the first question I would ask the fortune teller would be, if it looks good, you can tell me. If not, then ask me to ask you another question. That's cheating though, isn't it? A bit.
Yeah, that's cheating.
Well.
Yeah, that's true. But hey, that's a good, you know what? That's a good way to work, work it through though,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot to be concerned about, but I think that, I'd like to close on a positive note and say there are things that are getting better.
Right.
There has been progress, you know, yeah, we've taken one step forward and a couple steps back, but then we're making, a couple, it's relative,
Right.
so yeah, but I'm so glad to see you in good spirits today. And I have really enjoyed speaking with you. We are out of time. Do you have any parting words or of wisdom or anything else to add to your message today for people who are experiencing midlife, mid-career, a pivotal moment in their life? Anything you want to
Yeah.
take us out with?
These 3 words, life is good. You seen that T-shirt? There's a simple character, little stick and all of that.
Yeah.
That to me is I would like to start a business like that.
Well, but they did. So pick another phrase.
Yeah.
Pick another phrase, because they made lots and lots of money out of that basic.
Lots of money. And I'm like, that's the kind of business that I would like to start. Encouraging people. Let's, this is temporary.
Yeah.
That type of thing. But yeah, life is good.
Okay. I like that, Maurice. Well, I want to thank you again for your time and your openness and your humility and just everything. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you today.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I will be talking with you soon. And for everybody out there listening, this has been episode 4 of The Pivoting Wolf. This was Maurice Patton. And like he said, keep on moving on. Life is good. And we'll see you the next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.